Hello, Gooners, and welcome back to Arsenal Daily News. What a moment this is for Arsenal Football Club. We are sitting 4 points clear at the top of the Premier League table, undefeated in the Champions League, and into the Carabao Cup semi-finals. This is not just a good season. This is potentially a historic season in the making. But before we get ahead of ourselves, we have a crucial test on the horizon. Today, we are bringing you the most comprehensive breakdown of everything happening at Arsenal as we prepare for our trip to Bournemouth. And let me tell you, there's absolutely loads to cover. We have got the latest injury news on Declan Rice and whether he will be fit for this massive fixture. We are diving deep into Mikel Arteta's team selection dilemmas, particularly the big question up front about whether Victor Gyokeres keeps his place or if Gabriel Jesus gets the nod to lead the line. But that is not all. We have got breaking news from the transfer market, with Fabrizio Romano's latest updates on Arsenal's activity in the January window. We will discuss what Arteta himself has said about potential incoming and outgoing moves, and what it all means for our title challenge. There's also the shocking managerial news involving Chelsea and Enzo Maresca that has sent shockwaves through the Premier League, and we have got Arteta's classy response to that situation. Plus, we are analyzing why Bournemouth should absolutely not be underestimated, especially after what they did to us last season. We will break down Arsenal's predicted lineup, discuss the tactical setup Arteta is likely to deploy, examine how this Bournemouth match fits into the bigger picture of our season, and most importantly, we will talk about whether Arsenal have a mentality to maintain this 4-point advantage and go all the way. This is must-watch content for every Arsenal supporter. So make sure you stay with us until the very end. Hit that subscribe button, and let's dive into everything you need to know as Arsenal kick off 2026 in pursuit of Premier League glory. Come on, you Gunners. Arsenal versus Bournemouth analysis. Arsenal Daily News. Hello, Gooners, and welcome back to Arsenal Daily News. Today we are diving deep into Arsenal's upcoming match against Bournemouth on January 3rd. And let me tell you, there's plenty to discuss as we kick off 2026 in style. Arsenal's remarkable season so far. Let me start by painting the full picture of where Arsenal stand right now, because the context is absolutely crucial. This has been an exceptional first half of the 2025-26 season for Mikel Arteta's team. We are not just talking about a good run of form here. We are talking about a team that has lost just twice in all competitions. Think about that for a moment. Just 2 defeats across every single competition Arsenal have been involved in this season. That is championship-level consistency. But here is where it gets even better for Arsenal fans. Following that defeat to Aston Villa earlier in the season, the Gunners have shown exactly the kind of response that title-winning teams need to demonstrate. They bounced back to form in impressive fashion, and the highlight of that response was a comprehensive 4-1 victory over Villa in the reverse fixture. That is not just a win. That is a statement. That is Arsenal saying we learned from that defeat, and we came back stronger. The success is not limited to domestic competitions either. Arsenal remain undefeated in the Champions League. Let that sink in for a moment. Undefeated in Europe's premier club competition. That is the kind of form that gets you dreaming about potentially lifting that famous trophy. And if that was not enough, Arsenal have also progressed to the semi-final of the Carabao Cup. So we are looking at a team competing on multiple fronts and doing it successfully. The title race heats up. Now, let's talk about the Premier League table, because this is where things get really interesting for Arsenal supporters. Manchester City, the team that has dominated English football in recent years, played out a 0-0 draw with Sunderland. That result has massive implications for the title race. Following that draw and Arsenal's impressive 4-1 victory over Aston Villa, Arsenal now find themselves sitting pretty at the top of the league table, 4 points clear of their nearest rivals. 4 points clear. That is a significant cushion at this stage of the season. It gives Arsenal breathing room. It means they can approach the Bournemouth match with confidence, knowing that even if results do not go their way in one game, they have built up a buffer. But as every Arsenal fan knows, you cannot take anything for granted in the Premier League. Every match matters. Every point counts. And that brings us to this crucial trip to the South Coast, the Bournemouth Challenge. Arsenal's first game of 2026 sees them travel to face Bournemouth in the 17:30 Greenwich Mean Time kick-off slot on January 3rd. Now, some might look at this as a straightforward fixture on paper, but anyone who follows the Premier League closely knows that there are no easy games, especially away from home. Bournemouth have their own ambitions this season, and teams always raise their game when they face the league leaders. This is a kind of match where Arsenal need to show their professionalism. They need to demonstrate that they have the mentality to grind out results even when they are not at their best. The trip to the South Coast can be tricky. The atmosphere will be hostile. Bournemouth will be looking to cause an upset and derail Arsenal's title charge. But if Arsenal are serious about winning the league, these are exactly the kind of matches they need to win. Tactical setup and recent form. Let's dive into how Arsenal have been setting up recently, because understanding Arteta's tactical approach is key to predicting how they will approach this Bournemouth match. In their last match against Aston Villa, Arsenal lined up in their normal 4-3-3 formation. This is the system that Arteta has made his own at Arsenal, and it has been serving them incredibly well this season. Starting from the back, David Raya was between the posts. Raya has been excellent for Arsenal since joining the club, and his distribution from the back is a key part of how Arsenal build their attacks. In front of him, the back four consisted of Jurrien Timber at right back, William Saliba and Gabriel as the two center-backs, and Piero Hincapié completing the defense at left back. This is a solid defensive unit that has been keeping teams at bay consistently. The midfield trio selected by Arteta was particularly interesting. We saw Mikel Merino, Martin Odegaard, and Martin Zubimendi forming that engine room in the middle of the park. Odegaard, of course, is the captain and the creative heartbeat of this Arsenal team. His ability to find space between the lines and create chances is world-class. Merino brings physicality and tactical intelligence to the midfield, while Zubimendi has been an excellent addition, providing that defensive solidity and ball retention that allows Arsenal to control matches. In the wide areas, Arteta selected Bukayo Saka on the right wing and Leandro Trossard on the left. These two have been instrumental in Arsenal's success this season. Saka, in particular, has been in sensational form, terrorizing defenders with his pace, skill, and end product. Trossard provides that versatility and intelligence on the left side, able to cut inside and create or get to the byline and deliver crosses. The striker situation. Now, here is where things get particularly interesting, and this is something Arsenal fans will be watching closely. Leading the line against Aston Villa was Victor Gyokeres, and the article specifically describes him as being out of form. This is significant because Gyokeres is a player who arrived with high expectations, and when a striker is not scoring regularly, it creates questions and concerns. However, and this is crucial, Arteta now has options. Gabriel Jesus and Kai Havertz are both available for selection, and having these alternatives gives Arteta exactly the kind of selection headache that managers love to have. In his pre-match press conference, Arteta actually spoke about this positively, saying that it helps the team and helps every individual. He emphasized that with the amount of games Arsenal have on their schedule, having options is vital. Arteta made a really telling comment when he said that so far, they have not had that option, but now he is looking forward to having everybody performing and being able to change profiles during games and pick players in the best conditions every time. This suggests that Arsenal have been dealing with a thin squad in certain positions, and now that players are fit and available, it gives Arteta much more tactical flexibility. The question for the Bournemouth match is whether Arteta sticks with Gyokeres and tries to help him play his way back into form, or whether he makes a change and brings in Gabriel Jesus or Kai Havertz. This is a genuine tactical dilemma. Sometimes, when a striker is struggling for form, the best thing is to give them a break, let them reset mentally, and come back stronger. On the other hand, sometimes the only way to break out a goal drought is to keep playing and keep getting chances. Injury concerns and team news. Now, let's talk about the injury situation, because this is always crucial heading into any match. The big question mark surrounds Declan Rice. Rice is absolutely fundamental to how Arsenal play. He is a defensive midfielder who allows Odegaard and the other midfielders to get forward. He breaks up opposition attacks. He recycles possession. He is, in many ways, the glue that holds Arsenal's midfield together. In the pre-match press conference, Arteta discussed Rice's availability, and his comments were cautiously optimistic but also showed concern. Arteta explained that they had another training session scheduled, and they needed to see how Rice felt after that session. The Villa game came too early for Rice to feature. Arteta explained what happened with Rice's injury in detail. Rice took a hit during a game, and sometimes with adrenaline, and because you are warm during a match, you are able to sustain playing through that kind of knock. But then after the game, the body reacts. In Rice's case, his body reacted more than they expected, unfortunately. This is concerning for Arsenal because it suggests Rice is dealing with something that could keep him out for more than just one match. The fact that Arteta is being cautious and saying they need to assess him right up until game day suggests that Rice is doubtful for the Bournemouth trip. If Rice cannot play, it will be a significant blow. Arsenal will need someone to step into that crucial defensive midfield role, and it will change the dynamic of how Arsenal set up. Beyond Rice, there are two other injury concerns for Arsenal. Ricardo Calafiori and Christian Mosquera will both be missing from the Bournemouth matchday squad due to injuries. Calafiori is a versatile defender who can play in multiple positions, and Mosquera is another defensive option. Losing these players reduces Arteta's options on the bench and means he will have less flexibility if he needs to make defensive changes during the match. These injuries matter more than some fans might realize. Over the course of a long season, especially when you're competing on multiple fronts like Arsenal are, squad depth becomes crucial. Every injury puts more pressure on the players who are fit. It increases the risk of fatigue. It limits your tactical options. This is why Arteta's comments about being happy to have multiple options up front are so important. When you're dealing with injuries in some areas, having depth in other areas becomes even more valuable. Arsenal's predicted lineup, based on all the information available and taking into account the injury situation, here is how Arsenal are predicted to line up against Bournemouth. In goal, we expect to see David Raya. There is no question about this position. Raya has made the number one spot his own. In defense, we are looking at Piero Hincapié at left back, Gabriel and William Saliba as the center-back partnership, and Jurrien Timber at right back. This back four has been solid all season, and there is no reason for Arteta to change it, especially with Calafiori and Mosquera unavailable. The midfield is where things get interesting because of the Declan Rice situation. The predicted lineup has Martin Zubimendi, Mikel Merino, and Martin Odegaard forming the midfield three. If Rice is unavailable, Zubimendi would likely take on more defensive responsibilities, sitting deeper to provide that shield in front of the defense. Merino would box to box, contributing both defensively and offensively, while Odegaard would have the freedom to create from his advanced midfield position. In the wide positions, we expect to see Leandro Trossard on the left wing and Bukayo Saka on the right wing. These two have been excellent this season, and they are key to how Arsenal create chances and stretch opposition defenses. The big question is up front. The predicted lineup has Gabriel Jesus leading the line. This would be a change from the Aston Villa match where Gyokeres played. If Arteta does make this change, it suggests he wants to give Gyokeres a break and allow Jesus to stake his claim for the starting position. Jesus has the experience, the work rate, and the quality to lead the line for Arsenal. He knows the Premier League inside out, and he has that winning mentality from his time at Manchester City. What this match means for Arsenal. Let's zoom out for a moment and talk about the bigger picture. This Bournemouth match is Arsenal's first game of 2026. It is a chance to start the new year with 3 points and maintain their 4-point lead at the top of the table. But it is more than just 3 points. It is about momentum. It is about sending a message to their title rivals that Arsenal are not going to slow down. It is about showing that consistency and professionalism that separates title winners from also-rans. Arsenal cannot afford to be complacent. They cannot assume that just because they are 4 points clear, the job is done. Manchester City will be watching closely. Liverpool, if they are in the mix, will be watching. Any slip-up from Arsenal gives their rivals hope and puts pressure back on the Gunners. This is why these away matches against teams in the bottom half of the table are so crucial. These are the matches where champions win ugly, where they get the job done, even when they are not at their best. The fact that Arsenal remain undefeated in the Champions League and have reached the Carabao Cup semi-final shows they have a mentality to handle pressure and win when it matters. But domestic league form is different. It requires consistency week after week, grinding out results even when you're tired, even when you have injuries, even when the opposition raises their game against you, because you're the team everyone wants to beat. Arteta's Management Challenge. For Mikel Arteta, this match presents several management challenges. First, he needs to decide what to do about the striker position. Does he stick with Gyokeres and back him to find his form? Or does he make a change and bring in Jesus or Havertz? This is not just a tactical decision. It is a psychological one. Players need to feel backed by their manager, but they also need to understand that performance matters. Second, Arteta needs to manage the Declan Rice situation carefully. If Rice is fit enough to play, does Arteta risk him for this match? Or does he rest him to make sure Rice is fully healthy for bigger matches coming up? If Rice cannot play, how does Arteta adjust his tactics to compensate for losing such a crucial player? Third, Arteta needs to keep his squad motivated and focused. When you are 4 points clear at the top of the table, there can be a temptation to think the hard work is done. But as any manager will tell you, this is when the hard work really begins. Staying at the top is harder than getting there. Every team will be raising their game against Arsenal. Every match will be a cup final for the opposition. Conclusion. So there we have it. Gyokeres. Arsenal traveled to Bournemouth on January 3rd for their first match of 2026, sitting 4 points clear at the top of the Premier League table, undefeated in the Champions League, and into the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup. This has been a remarkable first half of the season, and now Arsenal need to maintain that level and show they have what it takes to go all the way. The predicted lineup shows a strong team with quality throughout, though there are concerns about Declan Rice's fitness and questions about who will lead the lineup front. Calafiori and Mascara will be missing through injury, reducing Arteta's options on the bench. But Arsenal have the squad depth and quality to get the job done at Bournemouth. This is exactly the kind of match that will define Arsenal's season. If they can go to Bournemouth and win, especially if they do it without being at their absolute best, it will show they have that champion's mentality. It will show they can grind out results. It will show they have what it takes to win the Premier League title. Thank you for watching Arsenal Daily News. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest Arsenal analysis. Let us know in the comments what lineup you would pick for the Bournemouth match and whether you think Arsenal can maintain their 4-point lead at the top of the table. Until next time, Gyokeres. Come on, you Gunners. Arsenal Daily News. Complete analysis of Mikel Arteta's pre-Bournemouth press conference. Hello, Arsenal fans, and welcome back to Arsenal Daily News. Today, we have got a massive press conference to break down from Mikel Arteta as the Gunners prepare to face Bournemouth in what could be a crucial Premier League fixture. This press conference happened on January 2nd, 2026, and there is so much to unpack here. So stick with me until the end because we're going to cover injuries, the title race, Chelsea's shocking managerial news, and what Arteta really thinks about Arsenal's position at the top of the table. The injury situation, who's in and who's out. Let's start with the news that every Arsenal fan wants to know about, the injury situation. And I've got to tell you, there is some concern here, but also some really positive news mixed in. First up, Declan Rice. Now, this is the big one that everyone has been asking about. Arteta was asked directly about Rice and the swelling on his knee that has kept him out of recent matches. The manager's response was cautious, but not overly pessimistic. He said that the swelling has not yet reduced and that they would have another training session to assess him. Arteta made it clear that Rice was too early for the previous game against Aston Villa, which tells us that the medical team is not going to rush him back. Now here is what's interesting about this. Arteta said they had not trained yet at the time of the press conference, so the first training session would tell them more. This means Rice's availability for the Bournemouth game on Saturday was genuinely up in the air. The manager is clearly being very careful with one of his most important players. We all know how crucial Declan Rice is to this Arsenal team. He is the heartbeat of the midfield, the player who controls the tempo, wins the ball back, and starts attacks. Losing him for any extended period would be a massive blow. But there is more bad news on the injury front. Ricardo Calafiori and Mascara are both ruled out. Arteta was very clear about this, saying simply that they are both out. No maybes, no possibles, just a straight answer that neither player will feature against Bournemouth. This is significant because Calafiori has been an important part of Arsenal's defensive options this season, and losing him means less rotation and flexibility at the back. However, and this is where the positive news comes in, Gabriel Jesus is back scoring, and Kai Havertz is back in the squad for the first time since the opening day. Now, let me emphasize this because it is huge news. Havertz being back for the first time since opening day means Arsenal have been without one of their key attacking players for months. His return gives Arteta so many more options going forward. Squad depth, finally having options. This brings us to one of the most interesting parts of the press conference where Arteta talked about selection headaches. A journalist asked him how pleasing it is to finally have that selection headache with players like Jesus and Havertz returning, and how it could help someone like Victor Lours. Arteta's response here was really revealing. He said it helps the team, and it helps every individual. He emphasized that having options is what they want given the amount of games on the schedule. Then he said something that I think every Arsenal fan has felt this season. He said, so far we have not had that option. Think about that for a moment. The Arsenal manager is basically admitting that for much of this season, they have been operated without the squad depth they need. They have been forced to play certain players game after game, without proper rotation. Now, with Jesus sharp and scoring, with Havertz back, suddenly Arteta can change profiles, change things during games, and pick the best players in the best condition every time. This is absolutely massive for Arsenal's title challenge. One of the criticisms of Arsenal in previous seasons has been a lack of depth, especially in attack. Now Arteta is saying he finally has those options back. He can rotate. He can bring on impact substitutes. He can adjust tactics mid-game based on the players available. This is the kind of luxury that champions need. The Bournemouth challenge, a difficult test. Now let's talk about the opposition. Bournemouth might not be one of the traditional Big Six, but Arteta has nothing but respect for them, and for good reason. The corresponding fixture last season was actually described as a bit of a turning point for Arsenal, and not in a good way. Last season, Bournemouth became the first team to defeat Arsenal that campaign. But it was not just about the defeat. It was also Arsenal's third red card of the season. In total, Arsenal received 6 red cards last season, which obviously had a massive impact on their title challenge. The good news is that Arsenal have had none so far this season, and Arteta was asked if he is pleased with the discipline. His response was measured. He acknowledged how important it is to maintain 11 players on the pitch as much as possible, and admitted they fell through that last year. Then he said something really important. He said we lost both games against them. Yes, you heard that right. Bournemouth did the double over Arsenal last season. They beat Arsenal home and away. Arteta went into detail about why Bournemouth are so dangerous. He said we know how good a team they are and how they can threaten you from every angle. Later in the press conference, he elaborated even more, saying he knows manager Andoni Iraola really well and thinks what he is doing is incredible. Arteta said he has been watching all the games Bournemouth have played this season, and he has seen how difficult they have made it for top sides and how they are getting good results against them. When asked specifically about the difficulties of facing Bournemouth, Arteta explained that the 2 games last season were very different. In one game, William Saliba got surprisingly sent off in minute 30, which obviously changed everything. Arsenal managed the situation and had some chances, but ended up losing. The home game started with Arsenal being very dominant, but it ended in what Arteta called a really poor result. The key takeaway here is that Arteta has learned from those defeats. He has huge respect for Bournemouth and Iraola. He is not taking this game lightly at all. And honestly, given that Bournemouth were the only team to do the double over Arsenal last season, this kind of respect and preparation is exactly what we want to see from our manager. Transfer window. Arsenal keeping their options open. The transfer window is now open, and naturally, Arteta was asked about potential moves. His answer here was interesting because it shows Arsenal are being smart and flexible in their approach. Arteta said Arsenal are open to every option. Whether it is a short-term solution, medium-term, or long-term, they are willing to consider it. He did say that finding a solution that is longer-term is always much better because it gives you stability, and you do not have to constantly start a process with a new player. But the key phrase was, let's see what happens. Let's see what the news is in the next few weeks, and we will try to make the right decision. So what does this tell us? It tells us Arsenal are active in the market. They are looking. They are monitoring situations. But they are not desperate. They are not going to panic buy. If the right player becomes available, whether on a permanent deal or even a loan, Arsenal will move. But Arteta is making it clear they will only move for the right player at the right price. There was also a question about potential departures. Specifically, Ethan Nwaneri was mentioned. The young midfielder has not actually played since the Brugge game and was not even in the squad against Aston Villa. The journalist asked if Arteta would consider a loan departure for Nwaneri so he can get first-team football. Arteta's response was very diplomatic, but also quite firm. He said that every player is very important. Every player has a role, and that role can change throughout the season for different reasons. The key message was that everybody has to be ready to play. Reading between the lines, it does not sound like Arteta is keen on letting Nwaneri leave, even on loan. The young player clearly has a role to play in Arteta's plans. The Enzo Maresca situation, Arteta's classy response. Now, here is where things get really interesting. There's been a major managerial departure that was announced, and it involves Chelsea. Enzo Maresca has left his position as Chelsea manager, and Arteta was asked for his reaction. Let me be clear about what the article states. It says there's been a managerial departure, and describes it as Maresca being sacked by Chelsea. Arteta was asked what his reaction was, and if it surprised him. Arteta's response was absolute class. He said he wishes Maresca all the best. He said he really likes Enzo as a person and as a professional. Then Arteta said something that many people might find surprising. He said he thinks Maresca has done a terrific job at Chelsea. That is a direct quote. Arteta thinks Maresca did a terrific job. This is fascinating because Arteta is essentially defending a manager who has just been let go by a rival club. He is saying publicly that he thinks Maresca did well. That takes courage and shows real solidarity among managers. Arteta finished by saying that it is a decision that has been made, and he just wishes Maresca all the best. This response tells us a lot about Arteta as a person. He could have given a generic answer or avoided the question. Instead, he went out of his way to praise Maresca and wish him well. It shows class, dignity, and respect for a fellow professional. These are the kinds of moments that make you proud to have Mikel Arteta as Arsenal's manager. The title race, 4 points clear. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Arsenal are top of the table. Not just top, but 4 points clear of second place. And who is in second place? Manchester City. How did this happen? Well, Arsenal put in a convincing win against Aston Villa. The article does not give us the exact score, but it describes it as convincing. Then, and this is crucial, Granit Xhaka's Sunderland secured an unlikely draw against Manchester City. Yes, you read that correctly. Granit Xhaka, the former Arsenal captain, is now at Sunderland, and his team held Manchester City to a draw. This result meant Arsenal opened up a 4-point gap at the top. The journalist asked Arteta if he would have signed up for this position at the beginning of the season, to go into the second half of the year with a lead of 4 points. Arteta's response was measured and focused. He said it is where we are, and we are really happy in the position that we are. But then, he immediately added that they can always be better and there are things to improve. He refused to get carried away or make grand statements about the title race. When asked directly about opening the gap to his opponents, Arteta did not want to be drawn on it. The article specifically states that Bournemouth was a focus for the head coach, and he did not want to be drawn on opening the gap to his opponents. This shows incredible focus and discipline from Arteta. He knows that talking about title races in early January is pointless. What matters is the next game. Another journalist pointed out that Arsenal have only lost 2 games this season, and asked if that kind of consistency is what wins titles. Arteta agreed, saying yes, but then immediately brought it back to reality by saying we are still in early January, so we have another, and the quote cuts off there, but you can tell where he was going. He was about to say we have another half of the season to go, or something similar. This is the Arteta we need to see. Focused, grounded, not getting carried away. He knows that in early January, a 4-point lead means very little if you do not maintain your standards. He knows that consistency over 38 games is what wins titles, not being top in January. The mood in the camp. When asked about the mood in the team after the Aston Villa victory, Arteta said it was very good, obviously, after the game. He described it as a really tough opposition and praised his team for performing and winning in the manner that they did. But again, and I cannot stress this enough, Arteta immediately brought the focus back to Bournemouth. He said, "Great focus on Bournemouth. We know how tough it is going to be tomorrow's game, and everybody's at it." This phrase, "everybody's at it," tells you everything about the mentality Arteta has instilled in this squad. They are not celebrating. They are not getting complacent. They are already focused on the next challenge. The attack. Goals coming from everywhere. One of the most encouraging aspects of Arsenal's season has been the contributions from the attacking players. A journalist mentioned Leandro Trossard, noting that he has the most goal involvements and asking how pleased Arteta has been with his performances. Arteta's answer here was brilliant because he did not just praise Trossard. He broadened it out to all the front players. He said he thinks Trossard has been very consistent and very stable. But then he said all the front players have contributed through the season so far in a great way. Whether starting or as impact players, they have all delivered. Then Arteta said something really interesting. He said that is what we need. They will bring different qualities to the team, but they are all in a great moment. This tells us that Arsenal are not relying on one or two goal scorers. Goals are coming from multiple sources, which is exactly what you need in a title-winning team. When asked if he senses a real hunger from those attacking players to want to start, Arteta said yes, they want to start, but they're also fulfilling their role when they have come in as substitutes in an extraordinary way. He said this is something Arsenal have improved a lot, that every time they bring players on, they are really deciding games. This is huge. One of the differences between good teams and great teams is the impact of substitutes. If your bench can come on and change games, you have a massive advantage. Arteta is saying Arsenal have developed this quality, and it is paying dividends. What this all means for Arsenal. So let's bring this all together. What did we learn from this press conference? First, Arsenal have injury concerns, particularly with Declan Rice being doubtful and Calafiori and Mascara definitely out. But they also have players coming back, with Jesus and Havertz returning to give much-needed depth. Second, Arteta has massive respect for Bournemouth and is not taking this game lightly. He remembers a double defeat last season and knows how dangerous they can be. The focus is entirely on getting 3 points against a tough opponent. Third, Arsenal are active in the transfer market, but will not panic. They are open to all options, but will only move for the right player. Young players like Nwaneri are part of Arteta's plans despite not featuring recently. Fourth, Arteta showed real class in his response to the Enzo Maresca situation, praising the manager and wishing him well despite the circumstances. Fifth, and perhaps most importantly, despite being 4 points clear at the top of the table, Arteta is keeping everyone grounded. He refuses to get carried away. He knows it is early January, and there is a long way to go. The focus is on consistency, on the next game, on continuous improvement. Finally, Arsenal's attacking players are all contributing, whether starting or coming off the bench. The goals are being shared around, and the impact from substitutes has improved massively. This depth and contribution from multiple sources is exactly what title winners need. Final thoughts.